Hello everyone, welcome to day 2 of video editing using Adobe Premiere Pro. So I'm going to launch the application now, and today we are going to start working on editing our video clips. The last time in class, you remember we saw how to edit and how to create our project settings, how to create sequence settings, and how to edit the sequence settings if we have issues with any of the settings we have already created. So today we are going to also import videos to our Adobe Premiere Pro application and then start editing immediately. So right now, I'm going to open from the recent project that we have created. And remember, I told you that if you have a recent project you're already working on, you can open using the Open Project button you can see here, or you can also go to the File and also click on Open Project. So once you do any of these two, it will help you to easily open from the folder where you have your recent project saved. So now I'm going to import a recent project that we have created, which was the one we used in the last class. So let's click now and then open the project. Now the project is opened and we have a blank screen. Our interface is blank, all the panels are blank. The first thing you want to do is you want to be able to choose the workspace that you need to edit your project. And remember, I told you you have to choose editing. It doesn't have to be editing if you know what to do with the rest workspaces you can see over here. But for this class, we are going to use editing as a workspace. And if you can't see this panel, this option for choosing your workspace, if you can't see it right now, you can always go to Window and then go to Workspaces and you can see Editing. Okay. All right. So what we want to do now is to import videos to our Adobe Premiere Pro and start editing. So to import video, you can go to the project panel, then double click within the space you can see here, or you can also right click to see the import option, or you can go to File, then you can see Import, which you can use the keyboard shortcut that says Command I, or you can also use Control I if you're on a Windows computer. So right now I'm going to import one or two videos to start editing. So let me go to the desktop and go to the folder that we have created over here, Adobe Premiere Pro, then videos, and then I can import these two videos. All right. So next thing I want to do is I also want to be able to import image. So I'll go to File again, then click on Import. And this time I'm going to import all of the image folder that you can see right now, which is the Photos folder. So click then Import. So now that I've imported the Photos folder, let me quickly create a folder, then select the two videos and then drag into the new folder I have just created. Then I'm going to give it a name of videos. All right. So the next thing I want to do now is to open this folder and start editing these videos. Now, there are various ways of cutting this particular video you can see now. Now, one of the ways you can cut this video is by dragging and dropping to the timeline over here. Then you can start cutting on the timeline. Or you can also use a method that is called marking markout. So this marking markout means we are going to use the source monitor you can see here to edit our video. So now I'm going to drag this video to the source monitor, or I'm going to double click on the video to make it show up in the source monitor. So either ways, your video will show up in this source monitor. Now, once I double click on this video now, I can be able to play back on this video. So meaning once I hit the play button, you can see over here that you can use the keyboard shortcut of spacebar to play and pause. So once I click the play button, you can see, let me play from beginning. Now this is what it looks like. Now I want to be able to select a little part of this video, then bring to the timeline to add one or more videos together to make a complete edit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark in on a part that interests me or on the part that I need to use for the editing. So once I listen to this video and I get to the particular part that I want, I'm going to pause, then click on the marking button you can see here, and you can use the keyboard shortcut I to mark in. So once you mark in on this video, you will be able to select, or you will be able to make use of the little part that you have marked. So now I'm going to continue playing this video right now. I'll move it forward a little bit. Then I want to be able to mark out on this part. So now I'll click this button that says mark out, or you can use the keyboard shortcut O to mark out. Now marking in and out means I already have a selected part of this video to use in my video editing, and which you can see from this blue point to this other blue point over here. So this little part will be usable on the timeline once I drag to the timeline. So how do you drag this video to the timeline? You don't drag from here. You can drag by clicking on the screen, the source monitor screen, then drag to the timeline. So once you drag it to the timeline, it will automatically create a sequence for you. Now, the next thing we want to do is to be able to bring our second video to the timeline to edit. So you have seen how to mark in and mark out, and now the second method is for us to be able to trim. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this video to the timeline. Then I want to be able to trim a part of this video. So on the timeline, if you feel the timeline space you can see here is too tiny for you to work, you can use the minus or plus key on the keyboard to expand or to shrink the timeline. So this is what it will look like. Now the part of this video that I want, let me start playing from somewhere around here. All right, so I want to make sure that this part is not included in the video that I need. So how do I do this? That's where the trimming comes in. So you have to be able to trim in or trim out on your video. So this trimming means once you put your mouse at the beginning of a clip, you will see the red symbol showing right now. It could be facing right, it could be facing left. So once it's showing, just click, drag, and then stop at the point where you want. Now you can see that the other parts of this video is no longer available. Now you can also trim on the end part of the video clip. So the same thing you can see now. Once you click and you drag, you cannot drag out on this one because this is where the video ends, but you can click and then trim in because we still have more videos over here, so you can trim in. So what you can do now is click on the end part and then drag your mouse till you get to the parts that you want, then release the mouse. So this is what we have now. Now what we have just done is also equivalent to the marking and mark out we did here. The only difference is the reason why you have to do the marking and mark out is because marking and mark out will help you to first listen to your video, then get the right parts from the video before you can drag it to the timeline. Now, trimming on the timeline, sometimes you might not want to do it if you have a busy timeline. So now let's assume the video 1, video 2, and video 3 layer on the timeline is very busy, meaning we have arranged items in this form, and we have items. Let me just duplicate this. So we have some other activities on the timeline just like this. Let's say it's so busy like this. We have something that is also looking this way. All right. So we already have a busy timeline like this. So we can't drag our video to the timeline because it will overlap on what we already have on the timeline. So in this case, you don't want to use the trimming method to edit your video. You want to first double click or drag to the source monitor, listen to the video, mark in, mark out on the part that you want. Then once you have marked in and out, you can now drag to the timeline. So in this case, it will help you to have just little part of your video clip coming to the timeline just like this. Now, for you to understand well what I'm saying, if you need to remove this mark in, mark out now, you can right click on the middle part of the in and the out, and then click on clear in and out. So it will remove the marking and mark out. Now that we have removed the marking and mark out, you will notice that if you click and drag the video to the timeline, it's longer than the clip we have earlier, which is very short. So in this case, if you want to drag this particular video to the timeline, you can see that if you don't have a if you don't have enough spacing on the timeline, you end up dropping the video on a particular clip that might mess up your video editing. So that's the reason why you have to first use the source monitor to mark in, mark out before you drag to the timeline. Now, another method that you can use to edit your video on the timeline is by coming to the tool section over here and then selecting the razor tool. So this razor tool is more or less like a blade that helps you to cut or split your video clips into two or into multiple parts depending on what you want. So what the blade will do is once it is selected, you can click on any part of your video clip and it will cut it into two. So now we have two parts of our video. So if the part we want is starting from here, then let's continue playing starting from here. Then let's continue playing till we get to the part that we want to stop. So let's assume this is the part we want to stop. Just select the blade, the razor tool again, click, then return to the selection tool. You can now reduce the timeline to be able to see the activities happening on the timeline. So if you hit minus on the keyboard, it will help you shrink the timeline, and if you hit plus on the keyboard, it will help you expand. So in this case, we want to use the minus to shrink the timeline and then remove this part and also remove this part. Now this is what we have left. So now we can click and drag to the end parts of what we already have on the timeline like this. You see? So this is what we have now. So you could have arrangements like this. There are sometimes you may want to end up, editing your video in this form. The next thing you want to do is to be able to add transitions to your video clips on the timeline. So how do you add transitions to your video clip? Now, what we are going to do in this case is you will come over to these panels that you can see over here. If you can't see the panel that says effects, then click on this arrow. That means you have a smaller screen like I have over here. Then click on this double arrow and you can see effects. Now, if you click on this double arrow and you can't see effects, then that means you have the panel disabled. So what you do in this case is come to window and make sure the effects panel is checked. So if it's not checked, click on it and you have it appearing over here. So you want to see how to add video transition to your video. So once you click on this arrow right now, it would expand the video transitions that you can see here. There are video effects, audio transitions, audio effects, and video transitions. So what we want to do is give our video a video transition. So we want to try this dissolve first and see what it looks like. So once you click on the dissolve arrow, you can see additive dissolve, cross dissolve, deep to black, deep to white, and so on and so forth. So let's try what cross dissolve, deep to black, and deep to white is. Then you can play with the rest at your own time. So now I'm going to drag cross dissolve on this layer. All right, you can't see clearly because the timeline should be expanded so you can see what is happening very clearly. So now I'm going to drag and drop again so you can see. All right, so once I press play now by hitting the space bar on the keyboard, you can see that's a transition effect. Okay, all right. There are also some other transitions that you can add to your video edit. So let's try another one, which is the deep to white. So I'll click and drag on the video clip. That's the only method you can use to apply your transitions and effects. So you click on the transition or the effect, then you drop it on the video you want to apply it to. And notice that when I'm applying the transition to the video clip on the timeline, I'm applying to either the beginning or to the end of the video clip, as you can see right now. So it is either to the beginning or to the end. So right now, we are still adding transitions, and I have just added deep to white. So once I click here now and I press play, so this is what our deep to white will do. It will create a transition from this video to this other video by deeping to white color. Yeah. All right. So the next one is deep to black. It depends on the transitions you want to use. So in this case, we are going to apply deep to black at the end of the clip, at the end of the timeline. So I'm going to drop it here now. Then I'm going to expand with the plus button on the keyboard to see the transition clearly, and I'm going to press play. So that's what it looks like. Let me take it back a little bit and then press play. So that's what deep to black is, and that's the way you can apply transitions to your videos. Now, let's assume you've already applied the transition to this part of the video, and the transition says cross dissolve, and you don't want this transition anymore. So to remove this transition, just click on the name of the transition on the timeline, then hit the delete button, and then you have removed it successfully. And if you don't want to remove it, you can also replace the transition you already have by dragging and dropping another transition on it. So I'm going to hit the undo button right now, which is Command Z or Control Z on the Windows keyboard to return the transition. So I'm going to drag another transition on top of the transition we already have here to replace it. So I'm going to use the slide transition. So notice now we are still under video transitions and then slide, not dissolve anymore. So we are under slide now. So I'm going to click the slide arrow. Then I'm going to use the slide transition by dragging to the top of the video. So now once you press play, you are going to see the transition effect. So that is slide. So the next thing I want to do now is to work on the audio. Now, as you can see, if I play the video now, the audio is very low. Now, while the video is playing, if you notice this panel on this side, this is where you can see the audio signal. So when you are playing your audio and you can see this green light, it is okay. Now, there's a time when the green light you can see here is getting to a yellow signal, and that means your audio is becoming too loud. And at a point, your audio will get to a red point, and that means your audio is more than enough, like it's too bad and you can't use it that way. So it has to be green like this or a little bit of yellow added to it. But in the case where you cannot hear the audio you are playing, that means you have to work on the sound. So now what we are going to do is to be able to work on the sound of this audio, the sound of this video clip right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this particular video layer, audio layer. I'm going to right click now and then scroll to the option that says audio gain. Click and then you can adjust gain by, then you enter the value of the volume you want to add to your audio. So once your audio is 0 by default, you can always adjust it to either go up or go down. That if it is too loud, you can reduce it. So at this point, I'm going to give it a value of 12. Let's see what 12 will look like and press OK. So notice that immediately I adjust by 12, the set gain to also increase to 12. So click OK. And then notice the audio wave is increased. It has gone up a little bit. So now I can press play and see how loud it is. Now let's move to the last item. You can see that we are hitting the yellow a little bit. That means we can still add a little more audio to it. So I'm going to right click on this layer and again click on the audio gain and then increase the gain by 5. So now I'm going to press play again. So now you can see that the volume is a little better. Now another way you can increase the volume of this audio layer you have on the timeline is by going to the effect controls you can see over here. So once you click on effect controls, then you can see on the audio section there's a part that says volume. So that's where you can increase the volume. So now we are going to increase the volume of another layer on the timeline. So let's see what we can do with the volume of this layer over here. So once you go to effect controls, that's where you can change the properties of the video layer and the audio layer that you have on the timeline. So as you can see now, there's a section that says video and there's a section that says audio. So in the audio section, click on the arrow on the left side of volume to display the audio properties of the volume. So you can see you can increase the audio level to 15, which is the highest. But the best way to increase your audio properties is by using the audio gain. So I'm going to enter 15 right now and then let's play and see if it's loud enough. It's still not loud enough. Now let's increase the audio by using the audio gain. So I'm going to give it 10. So right now you can see that it's hitting on red. It's because we have set the audio gain and at the same time we have set the audio level to 15. So I'm going to change the audio level back to 0. But meanwhile, notice this icon you can see over here. So that brings us to keyframing. But before then, let me quickly remove the keyframe that we already have here, and then we can start working on keyframing our layers. So right now the audio, the volume level is now returned back to 0. So the next thing we want to do is to be able to also set a split screen for this video we can see here. But to set a split screen, to create a split screen for your video, you have to have two videos that are overlaying on one another, just like this. So now you can see on the video 2 layer, there's a layer that says intro 1, and there's on video 3 layer, there's a layer that says intro, the name of the layer. So that means we have 2 different layers on top of each other. But meanwhile, you can't see this video layer. So what we want to do now is we want to be able to set keyframe for these 2 layers. Let me be sure that we have. Okay, so let me remove this and then bring this forward. Okay, so now we have 2 layers that are overlapping on each other, and we want to be able to create a split screen for these two videos. So when I say split screen, what do I mean? I mean, we want one of the videos to be on one side of the screen, and then we want the other video to be on the other side of the screen. So this is how to make this possible. Select one of the layers, then make sure that you have effect controls, the panel, make sure you have it active. Then head over to the video section under effect controls, and then that's where you can edit the properties of this video that you can see here, the video clip. Now for the audio properties, I told you can use the audio section you can see over here to work on the audio properties. So now we want to set these two clips to become a split screen. So we have one of the video layers selected, and then under effect controls video, then click on the arrow that is next to motion. So once you click this arrow, it will display the properties of motion, and the properties of motion, as you can see here, is position, scale, scale width, rotation, anchor point, anti-flicker, filter. Now we are going to work on the position and the scale for the split screen. So how do we do this? What we are going to do is we are going to first work on the scale of this video, but in this case we are going to set it to be 50. That means the scale, which is how big, how this video covered the screen, we are going to reduce it by half. So setting it to 50 will reduce it by half. So I'm going to change it to 50. So this is what it becomes. So right now I'm going to select the other video layer and then set it to 50 also on the motion scale. So I'm going to change this to 50 also. All right, so they are still overlapping on each other. So I'm going to select the first one, which is the one we can see right now, the one on top. Then I'm going to adjust the position settings by clicking on the x-axis of the position. So on positions, you can always have the x and y axis. So this x-axis means you can move your videos to the left or to the right. And this y-axis means you can move your video to the top or to the bottom. And that means the top-bottom movement means a vertical movement, and the left-right movement means horizontal movement. So we are going to work on the horizontal movement first. If there's any need for the vertical, we are going to adjust it. So what you can do in this case is, if you already know the value you want to use for your position x-axis, then click, then enter the value that you want to use. But if you don't already know, what you should do is click on the value for x-axis, then drag to the left. Once you get to the end of the screen, just like this, then release it. Now select the other video layer, then on the position also click on the x-axis and then drag to the right side, just like this. As you can see now, it's touching at this edge. So we have successfully created a split screen. So if we play back now, this is what you will see. Okay, but in this case, we need to remove the transition we have here. So now we have already created a split screen. To make this split screen beautiful enough for our viewers to enjoy, this is what we are going to do. We want to make sure that before we create this split screen, one of the videos is still showing like we have them before. We want to return it to what it is before, but before then we are going to split the two layers. Now how do we do this? We are going to select the razor tool on the tool section, click exactly on this blue line, then also click on the second video clip and cut. So now we have successfully cut these layers. So what I'm going to do right now is return the razor tool by selecting the selection tool, then select this video layer, and then at this point before the transition happens, I'm going to, okay, let's use the other video clip here. So at this point where we want the split screen to appear, we are going to set a keyframe. That means we are going to set our video clips into motion. And how do we do this? So you are going to select one of the layers, then come over to the effect controls under motion, then select the select the animation toggle that you can see over here. So just click. Once you click on this, you notice the icon that is created over here already. So now we are going to move forward in time. We are going to move forward in time by hitting the left arrow on the keyboard like 10 times. So that means we are going to move forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You might not see it, but we have moved forward 5 frames. So now that we have moved forward 5 frames, I'm going to expand by hitting the plus key on the keyboard, and make sure before you hit the plus key on the keyboard, this panel, the effect controls panel, is selected, and this blue line will help you to know if the effect control panel is selected and the effect controls panel is underlined, just like this. So I've successfully expanded this part. So I've successfully expanded now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another keyframe over here. Okay. So I'm going to create another keyframe by clicking on this add remove keyframe. Remember when we were creating the first keyframe, we used the animation toggle you can see over here to set our first keyframe. So if you are setting the second keyframe, you are not going to use that again. Just click on this button that says add remove keyframe. So it will help you to add a keyframe, and if you don't want the keyframe anymore, you can also click to remove it. And before you click to remove, make sure this blue line is exactly on top of the keyframe you want to remove. How do you know that this blue line is on top of the keyframe you want to remove? Now, make sure if this blue line is not on that keyframe, use this button you can see here that says go to previous keyframe. And if you're in between two keyframes just like this, you can use this other one that says go to next keyframe. So it will help you go to the next keyframe, or to help you go to the previous keyframe. So make sure you are on top of the keyframe you want to remove, then hit this button that says add or remove. Now this is what happens if you don't do it on top of the keyframe you want to remove. If you have something like this and you hit the button, it will create another keyframe for you. So make sure you're on top of the keyframe you want to remove first, then hit this button. Now that we have a second keyframe set for us, what we want to do is we want to be able to animate this video layer to come to this position it is right now. So I have created the first one, and the second one. So I'll go back to the first keyframe and make sure I return it to the position that it was before. And how do I do this? I'm going to hit this reset button you can see here. So it will reset just this keyframe alone for me. This will not be affected. Notice if I move to the next keyframe now, it's still at that position. So we have been able to reset this keyframe successfully by going back to the value we have for position. So now what we have just done for position, I'm going to do the same for scale. Now that we are at the beginning of this clip, because we have splitted it, now that we are at the beginning, I'm going to click on the starting, I'm going to click on animation toggle at the beginning for scale. So I'll select it, our animation, our keyframe will be created, and then I'll move to this point to create another keyframe. So the quickest way to do that is to click on the add next keyframe, go to next keyframe on position. So it will help us go to the next keyframe, because under it is where we want to create the next keyframe for scale. So now that we are at that point where we want, we can now add a new keyframe for scale, just like this. So now what I'm going to do is I'll go back to this first keyframe for scale by hitting the go to previous keyframe here. Then I'm going to set scale back to 100. Now you can see that my scale is now 100 at this keyframe, and if I move to the second keyframe, it is 50, as you can see right now. So to make it more reasonable, I'll come to this video clips I have here that is splitted. I mean that has a split screen. I'm going to return them. I'm going to return both of them back to 100. So I'll click on this one now and just reset. You can see that we don't have any keyframe or animation going on this. So once I have the layer selected, I'm going to select reset on position like this, and then come to the scale and also reset the scale. Now it's back to 100. Then to the other one, we can't see right now because the top video clip is covering it. But once you have it selected, come to effect controls, then under video section, you can reset the position for your motion and the scale for your motion by hitting the reset buttons in front of the two settings. So now, if we play back our video, this is what it will look like. So you can see the animation that took place there. Our split screen was visible, and it took a smooth movement for the top video layer, which is this one, to scale from 100% to 50%, and also from the center position, filling the whole part of the screen, to the left position that it is right now, filling just half part of the screen. So let me just play again so you can see what happened there. You can see now we have only created for this part alone. So what I want you to do now is to have two layers overlapping on each other this way, have it splitted on the first layer and on the second layer, create the keyframe animation that we have done for the top layer like this, and then create a second movement for the second video clip you can see here. Now, what you are going to do in this case is very simple. The movement of this layer is going to happen to the right. It's going to happen to the right, which we've already created. All you just need to do is select the layer and start setting the keyframe. Now, to get it very well, so it won't give you any problem, select this first layer that we have created keyframe on top, and then expand. So make sure you have this panel selected and hit the plus key on the keyboard. Then drag to where you have your keyframes. So you can see our keyframes are visible. Now, select this other layer because you don't want to start counting 10 frames, to discover where to put your keyframes and so on and so forth, because what you want to achieve is exact. The only difference is one is animating to the left and the other is animating to the right. So click on this layer right now, then set your animation toggle for position and scale by clicking both 1, 2. So you have been able to set the animation toggle successfully. So the next thing I want you to do now is to be able to count 10 keyframes forward by using the forward key on the keyboard. Count 10 keyframes forward, create a new keyframe, add a new keyframe on the position and on the scale settings. So on the new keyframe you have created, make sure that you drag position to the right. Once it's exactly on the right side of the screen, you leave it. Make sure your scale is 100% at the beginning of the first keyframe, and then it is 50% on the second keyframe, and then play back to see what you have done. So we have come to the end of the class today. So the next video editing class we are going to have, you are going to see how to add video effects to your layer, and then you are also going to see how to do color correction for your video layers. You are also going to be able to put your video clips into slow motion. So if you have a video clip you are editing and you want to add the slow motion effects, you are going to see how that works. I want you to head over to our YouTube channel and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like and comment on the videos. So thank you for being a part of today's class. Thank you for making it a date with us. Next week, we are going to continue on the class. Thanks.